creating a values-based life. Well, first you have to know what they are, don't you? What are those values that we value? And what do we mean by spiritual? You know, we talk about, the theme for this month is actually spiritual living. Well, what the heck does that mean? Spiritual living. Because we know that we're spiritual beings living in a spiritual universe, so living is just a spiritual experience. But the question is, how are we recognizing the presence not only of our individual spirit, but of that overarching spirit that is present everywhere? And are we in alignment with that? Ernest Holmes, the founder of the Science of Mind and Spirit, which is the underlying philosophy of this community, said, spiritual experience is a fact. Spirituality may be defined as an atmosphere of good, the realization of God. It cannot and does not borrow its light from another, no matter how great or noble that other may be. It springs from within, coming from that never-failing fountain of life, which quenches every thirst, whose source is in eternity, the wellspring of self-existence. It is a revelation of the self to the self, putting one back on the track of his own self-dependence on spirit, his own at-one-ment with reality with a capital R. His own at-one-ment with reality with a capital R. That is, that reality that is in that spiritual realm of perfection, that is wanting to be expressed, that is giving itself in every moment, looking for inlets and outlets for its expression in form and in manifestation. Holmes says spirituality is natural goodness. God is not a person. God is a presence personified in us. Spirituality is not a thing. It's the atmosphere of God's presence, goodness, truth, and beauty. And he also said, you are spiritual insofar as you trust in the Spirit at all times, in all places, and under all conditions. You are spiritual insofar as you trust in the Spirit at all times, in all places, under all conditions. I had a minister once who said, if you think you're spiritual, go spend time with your family. Because they know how to press all your buttons. They know how to see if you really can be maintaining that poise and that equanimity and that loving connection when you have, that annoying little brother or that, cranky older sister or whoever it is. You get involved in these family dynamics and they can really pull you right out unless you're really centered, unless you really stay there. And that's our challenge, to really stay in that place of knowing that Spirit is there and trusting that we can, in the silence, open to its guidance. Trust in it, regardless of the appearances. So when we talk about values, the definition from the dictionary of a value is a person's principles or standards of behavior, one's judgment of what is important in life. One's judgment of what is important in life. And we have principles here at the Science of Mind and Spirit. The principles that we have are in a statement that Ernest Holmes gave to someone who asked him, well, what do you believe? And he said, we believe in God, the living Spirit Almighty, one indestructible, absolute, and self-existent cause. This one manifests itself in and through all creation, but is not absorbed by its creation. The manifest universe is the body of God. The manifest universe is the body of God. It is the logical and necessary outcome of the infinite self-knowingness of God. We believe in the incarnation of the Spirit in humankind and that all people are incarnations of the one Spirit. We believe in the eternality, the immortality, and the continuity of the individual soul, forever and ever expanding. We believe that the kingdom of heaven is within us and that we experience this kingdom to the degree that we become conscious of it. We believe the ultimate goal of life to be a complete emancipation from all discord of every nature, and that this goal is sure to be attained by all. We believe in the unity of all life, and that the highest God and the innermost God is one God. We believe that God is personal to all who feel this indwelling presence. We believe in the direct revelation of truth through our intuitive and spiritual nature, and that everyone may become a revealer of truth who lives in close contact with the indwelling God. We believe that the universal spirit, which is God, operates through a universal mind, which is the law of God, and that we are surrounded by this creative mind, which receives the direct impress of our thought and acts upon it. We believe in the healing of conditions through the power of this mind. We believe in the control of conditions through the power of this mind. We believe in the eternal goodness, the eternal loving kindness, and the eternal givingness of life to all. We believe in our own soul, our own spirit, our own destiny, for we understand that the life of humankind is God. So we each individually are living the life of God right now. How we doing? We have our good days and we have our bad days. We have our ups and we have our downs. Like my 4-year-old nephew said, I'm only human. So this year we're going to explore the values that we have in the science of mind and spirit. And these are from the Centers for Spiritual Living. These are the values that they take on as an organization. And so we're going to look at those values and we're going to see which ones we want to really focus on ourselves. Because there's a whole bunch of them. And the thing is, I think, and most times you have to have like a top 3 that really are the values you will always use. You will always adhere to. Those cannot be played with. They cannot be erased. That we have that within us that aligns us with that. Those values are like a compass. You know, I used to sail on San Francisco Bay, and sometimes the fog would come in. And when the fog came in, you could not see anything. You couldn't see the bridge, you couldn't see the port, you couldn't see anything. The only thing you had was your compass and your chart. Now you had to know where you were going in order to plot your course and in order to know which way the compass should be pointing. But you really had to trust in that little compass. And that compass relies upon a law of the magnetism of the earth. You know, it relies on the magnetism of the earth to point in that direction. And so we can determine where we are even when we're in a fog. And that's what values are. Even when we don't know what else is going on, what we know is, I have this value. That I'm a loving individual, and I'm going to be that no matter what happens. So, The first, in January, we're studying spiritual living. And in spiritual living, we learn and practice our philosophy, and we practice principle-centered lives. So we practice living these principles of oneness and connection, and that we are connected not only to one another, but to that infinite source. February, we have diversity and inclusivity. We value, embrace, and celebrate the individual uniqueness and contribution of all people as they express through differences of gender, ethnicity, culture, history, experience, talents, and sexual orientation. We include representatives from all our organizational constituencies in leadership, sacred service, and decision-making. And I was thinking about this in relationship to my family. I don't know if any of you at Thanksgiving saw the picture that I brought of my family. And I come from a large Irish Catholic family in San Francisco. And of course, being Irish Catholic, we were all little Celtic people. And now, if you look at our family, we have African Americans, we have Filipinos, we have Indonesians, we have all of the continents, Latinos, we have all of the continents represented in our family. And that is a wonderful thing to realize and to recognize. We are all family, no matter where we come from, no matter how we look. It's so much more than the visible. So February, inclusion and diversity. And March is education and continuous improvement, that we're always trying to understand and expand our awareness of that spiritual presence and what it's asking of us, and aligning with that and moving forward in that direction, whatever it is. Taking whatever those classes are, taking whatever we feel drawn to, and learning about it. I heard a story yesterday on NPR about this woman in the early 20th century. She was African American and American Indian. And she decided that she wanted to go to college, but of course, being a woman, number one, being African American and Native American, number two, forget about it. So she was doing manicures in Chicago. And there were a lot of soldiers coming back in those days. Men used to get manicures. Yes, it's true. And so she was meeting a lot of soldiers who had come back from the First World War. And they were telling her about flying. And so she decided, I want to fly. Well, of course, no flying school would accept her. So she started taking French because she figured she'd go to France. And so she started taking French, and a benefactor paid for her to go to France. And in France, they let her take the flying lessons, and so she got her pilot's license in France. She came back to the United States, and she was a sensation, this flying woman. 2 years before Amelia Earhart, by the way. She was 21 years old, a pilot, doing loop-de-loops and all kinds of air shows, and just, they wanted to put her in the movies, and we probably would know a lot more about her, except that when she was 26, she was practicing for one of her shows and she crashed. But she did not take no for an answer. She did not get discouraged. She did not think, oh, I can't do that because of this, because I'm this and that and the other thing. She said, I'm going to fly, and I'm going to figure out a way to do it, and nobody's going to stop me. So this is about our continuous improvement, following that inner call and doing whatever it takes to get it. And I'm thinking, well, she was 21, I'm 70. What am I going to do? And then I thought, honey, you are as young as you will ever be right now. So whatever it is, you better think about that. Okay, all right. What's next? Woohoo! Watch out, 2017. All right. Transformation and evolution. We do deep interpersonal work for self-discovery and healing. to reveal the greater truth of our divinity, our wholeness, and our freedom. So what happens is when we're young, we get all of these thoughts and beliefs and all these things come to us, and we think that they're true, and we take them on, and they make us feel bad or guilty or, and so we have to let all of that go. We have to transform that. We have to say, no, that's not who I am. I am an immortal spiritual being having a human experience right here, right now, and I am willing and ready to move through all that other stuff. Principle is not bound by precedent. That means your history does not define you. Your history does not. You can make a change today and have a whole new experience, but it starts with a new thought and transformation and evolution. All right, creativity. We believe that the Spirit is creative and it will create through us. And so we just open to that creativity to bring forth new forms, new expressions to inspire and guide us. So we're looking for new solutions. We're looking for new ways of doing things. We're open to the new. I learned a new word. I learned 2 new words yesterday. I learned the word textpectation. Textpectation. That's when you have texted somebody and those 3 little dots are there and you're waiting for the reply. Textpectation. Or you've texted somebody and you're waiting. Textpectation. Why aren't they replying? And the other thing was I heard a form of music called Afrofuturist. It's a whole new genre of music. So there's always more evolving, more coming into being, and we'll have to be open to just experiencing it all. Accountability. We have to account for our activities. We have to disclose them in a transparent manner and accept responsibility for our actions and the obligations entrusted to us. We have to only say yes to what we're really going to do. Don't say yes and think, well, I can get out of that. And don't say yes if you really mean no. If you mean no, say no. Because we don't want other people depending on us for something we are not intending to deliver. Open communications, July. We communicate openly with each other in an atmosphere of collaboration and inclusion. August, love. All right, love month. So we embrace love as the self-givingness of God to all creation, moving through us into expression as compassion, caring, mutual respect, and kindness. We express interest in and support for the well-being of ourselves and others. And unconditional love when we observe the suffering of others and do what we can to give aid and show compassion. September, community service. We dedicate our time, talent, and treasure and expertise to the healthy and joyful evolution of our spiritual community, our community in which we live, and the greater community of the world. And we do that in the board. We give our tithes. You give to us, and then we give tithes to community organizations and to international organizations. We just gave some of our tithe to Oxfam to help the Syrian refugees. And we also give it to Hospitality House and to the Interfaith Food Ministry and to DVSAC and lots of other local organizations that we support. Sierra Roots, lots of folks. So October, we express love as safety. So we create a community-wide climate conducive to honest reflection and deep and direct communication. And that's really important, that every voice gets heard. We may not like what we hear, but every voice can be heard, should be heard, because we might hear something that could change our mind, to give us a new perspective, to allow us to move forward with some new idea. November is financial health and prosperity because it's order and balance. Order is God's first law, according to G.K. Chesterton. Order is God's first law. So we have order and balance in our finances and our financial well-being, and we value the principle of abundance, and its expression is prosperity. And so we're going to explore that whole idea of what is prosperity and what is abundance, what is wealth. We've got a very messed up view of all of that, if you don't mind my saying so. And then December, we have integrity. So we embrace the quality of being honest and strive to let our inner convictions match our outer actions. Let our inner convictions match our outer actions. So we express wholeness, honesty, and fairness in our relationships and our activities. So each of these months, we're going to explore these. Those are the values, and we're going to be exploring them in depth. And so we can use this time to think of these values and which ones are the most meaningful for us. Or maybe the value that we find most important isn't in there. Maybe there's something else that we find really important, and that's okay too, as long as we know what that is and what it means to us. We're invited to think about what it is we value, what we think it is important to know and to be and to do. What do we think is important to be, to know, and to do? Every morning I do a meditation, and I say, okay, Spirit, what quality of being is this day? What is the quality of being? What must I know, and what must I do? And I sit with that until something comes. So this morning I said, what's the quality of being? Enthusiasm. Well, of course, enthusiasm means God is here. And so what was my knowing? My knowing was God is in the house. Because I didn't know how the temperature was going to be or how comfortable or uncomfortable we were going to be. I said, God is in the house. And then what was mine to do? Let God be God as me. Just do that. Let God be God as me. Okay. I love those commercials when they have for Dignity Health when, they show people helping each other. They show a runner who has fallen on the track, and another runner comes, and instead of finishing the race, she comes and helps the other runner, lifts her up, and helps her to finish the race. That meant that she had a value that helping this person was more important than finishing the race, or that finishing the race together was more important than her getting ahead of this other person. That was a value for her. There also is a little one, and these are little teeny guys, these hockey players, they can barely walk, and they're on these little hockey skis, and they're all, and this one kid has fallen down, and of course he's so bundled up, he can't get up. And he's struggling on the ice, and a little kid from the other team comes over, sort of props on his hockey stick and, reaches down his hand and helps up the other little kid. They're on opposite teams. He doesn't let him just flounder. Being helpful is a value. Are we being helpful to one another? And here's a little kid. He was being helpful to this other little person who had fallen down. So it's about thinking about what we think about. Is this thought I am having life-affirming? Is this thought that I am having more expansive, more loving, more joyful, more creative? Or am I constricting, constraining, stopping? Am I holding a resentment? Am I holding anger? You know, it's okay to be angry. It's just energy. But the question is, what do you do with that anger that can turn it in a positive direction? Now, sometimes you have to just go out and stomp and throw something. But, you know, you don't hurt anybody with it. This guy last week, William Ury, I was talking about him, and he said, you know, when you're angry, you will make the greatest speech you will always regret. So the question is, what are we thinking? What are we knowing? What are we doing that is life-affirming, that is bringing more to life, that demonstrates the golden rule? And I'm sorry, every religion has the golden rule. And if we all followed the golden rule, what a world it would be. If we all just did unto others as we would have them do unto us. Holding that one rule, if we followed that one rule, we would be in heaven on earth. We would be in heaven on earth. So, let us say our affirmation for this morning. It's on page 2, I believe. And say with me, I live a principle-centered, spirit-led life. 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 And so it is.